Former Klansman David Duke threatens to sue Wisconsin if he doesn't get on the ballot. David Duke joins us next live on Smith & Company. Good evening, I'm Joe Smith. I'm glad you're here. A former Ku Klux Klan Grand Wizard wants to be on the Wisconsin presidential ballot so badly he's willing to go to court if he's denied the chance. When Louisiana State Legislator David Duke ran a losing race for governor in his state last fall, people across the country learned about this man with the Klan and the neo-Nazi background. Duke now wants to unseat George Bush and is running for president as a Republican. He is not yet on the Wisconsin ballot. And an 11-member state committee votes later this month to decide whether Duke's name can appear on the Republican ballot in the April primary. The 5 Republicans on the panel don't want David Duke on their ballot. The 5 Democrats haven't said how they will vote. If this committee votes not to allow Duke on the Wisconsin ballot, he says he will sue the state. Wisconsin statute states that the committee will put candidates on the ballot if they are, quote, generally recognized in the national news media. David Duke joins us tonight from New Orleans. Wisconsin Republican Party official Scott Walker is here in Wisconsin, and we invite your questions. And Representative Duke, let me start with you. You chastise the GOP party as being one of the country club set, and yet you say that you're for the working class person. Why not run as a Democrat rather than a Republican?
Because the Republican Party is the closest party to the American middle class, the working people of the country. The Democratic Party really has become the party of liberalism, leftist ideology, and certainly I don't identify with the Democratic Party. But we have a two-party system in America. And if you don't participate in either the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, you basically don't participate, because there are no other congressmen or senators in America other than Republicans and Democrats. And I'm an elected Republican official. I became the Republican nominee from the state of Louisiana. I defeated a Republican incumbent governor. I received the vast majority of the Republican votes. I'm a member of the Republican delegation in the Louisiana legislature. I have a right to be a Republican as much as George Bush or Patrick Buchanan or anyone else.
Well, let's talk about the difference between you and Pat Buchanan then. Is there much difference?
Basically, our views are very close, very similar. And I like Patrick Buchanan. And I may end up throwing some of my delegates to him, or he may throw some to me by the end. But I certainly have a right to run. I think I have more vote-getting potential than Patrick Buchanan has.
Are people afraid of you because of your background? Is that why they perhaps don't want you on the ballot if Pat Buchanan's okay?
You know, I tell you something. President Bush wasn't afraid of Clarence Thomas's background. He was a former associate of the Black Panthers. He supported the Black Panthers, wore a Black Panther beret, helped take over university buildings. I supported Clarence Thomas. If Clarence Thomas is acceptable for the Supreme Court, certainly I have a right to participate. Ronald Reagan, at an older age than myself, was an active socialist. And I mean socialist with a capital S. He was a member of the ADA. He was one of the founders of United World Federalists.
So are you saying that background should have nothing to do with whether or not a person votes for you? We should not think about your past?
Well, I think my past is a legitimate issue, but I think that whether you're out on a ballot or not should have nothing to do with your perceived ideology. If a few men can decide that you're not in the ballot because they don't like your positions, they don't like your past, then we don't really have a truly representative society.
Okay. Let me interrupt here. Scott, 47 states appear to, they're going to let David Duke on the ballot. Wisconsin, if you read what's in the statute, pretty vague. And David Duke is getting national recognition from the news media.
Sure.
Are you afraid to let him?
Well, in large part, we believe that so much not recognition as much as David Duke has become a creation of the media, that the national media is hooked on to some of his background and created him. In particular, we're not arguing with his ability to be placed on the ballot per se. They're outside of the committee. We're taking a statement that the committee can turn him down. In turn, he may take one of 2 options. The first being one in which he mentioned, and that is the potential of suing the state. Certainly that's the easier of the 2. The second being one which we would challenge him to do, and that is to do what is within the bounds of the law, and that is to collect 1,000 signatures in each of the 9 congressional districts in the state of Wisconsin. And we believe that if he feels he's a legitimate candidate and the people of the state recognize that, then he should be able to muster that support.
David Duke, would you do that?
Well, here's the situation. I shouldn't have to draw any more signatures than any other candidate.
No, but would you do that? Would you answer the question? Would you go ahead and do that?
if all the other candidates are required to do the same thing, certainly I would. But this is not an objective that's an objective criteria. But you can't give one standard for one candidate and another standard for another candidate. That's not true equal protection of laws. And I have a right to run as a Republican. And the law is very specific. It says a nationally recognized candidate. I am certainly that. I'm better known than almost any Democratic candidate who will be in the ballot. So, I mean, certainly I should have a right to run as a Republican.
David Duke, what are you known for?
I'm an elected representative of the state of Louisiana.
But let me ask you, in the national sense, what are you known for?
I'm known for my political viewpoint. Same as Jesse Jackson was known on the Democratic side for liberalism. Same as Patrick Buchanan is known for his strong conservative viewpoint.
Representative Duke, that's where we would differ, though. Your viewpoints may or not be legitimate. We feel in particular that you're hiding behind some of the legitimate interests of the working class Americans, issues as far as welfare reform, as far as job protection, job security, issues that are important particularly here in this district, in this part of Milwaukee.
Well, why is it that I was
Wisconsin. Let me finish, Representative Duke, if you will, please. The key, though, is we feel that in particular you're hiding behind these issues that are legitimate issues, but do not necessarily make you a legitimate candidate any more than in the city of Milwaukee. If Jeffrey Dahmer were to stand up and talk about family values,
what he talks about, though, are Republican issues, the same issues that you talk about.
The voters have a right. The voters have a right, whether my issues are legitimate or not, and whether I'm legitimate or not, and talk about hiding behind issues. I was the first. I want to remind you that I was the first Republican candidate in this country that used affirmative action as a political campaign issue. I'm the first one that had the guts to do that. I'm the first one that talked openly about the illegitimate welfare birth rate, the need to have workfare instead of welfare, and used it as campaign issues. Since that time, other Republicans have adopted those issues. I've really forced a change in the Republican Party, and more Republicans across the country are using those issues successfully, and that's certainly in no small part due to my efforts.
Scott, the things that David Duke talks about are the same things that David Prosser, the minority assembly leader, is talking about, the same things that Governor Thompson is talking about with workfare. So what is the difference between those Republicans and David Duke as a Republican?
Sure. Certainly here again, the distinction we're making is not one of saying that his issues are extreme. They certainly are not on certain issues that we're discussing here. The subject is, and where we wish to make a moral judgment, and whether you agree with it or not is certainly up to our viewers and up to the people of the state of Wisconsin. But we're making a moral judgment, one based upon his background, which we alluded to at the beginning, which goes far beyond the specific issues that he is using for the political opportunity to gain success in this particular election. But the key being the fact that, and it's not useful discretion, it's not a useful thing that has gone by, as he alluded to Ronald Reagan and some others. The fact is, as recently as 1989, David Duke was known to have sold neo-Nazi material right out of his office in Louisiana.
Representative Duke, can people put that aside and forget your past and vote for you?
That's the whole problem. So you're trying to make decisions for the voters. Now, the voters can decide whether I've done that or not. I haven't done that. I've never sold materials from my office. I had a bookstore all my life. I've sold left-wing books, right-wing books, like any bookstore in Milwaukee carries Mein Kampf or carries the Das Kapital. That does not make every bookstore owner a Nazi or a communist. I believe in allowing the free sale of books and items in any opinion. But the point is, it's not my background here. You know, again, a lot of people have backgrounds in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. I have a right to run, and the point is the voters have the right to make that decision, not a few bureaucrats in a smoke-filled room. And that's the problem what's going on here. The kind of suppression that's going on is reminiscent of what went on in the Soviet Union when party bosses decided who would be on the ballot and who wouldn't.
Representative Duke, answer me this. If the Ku Klux Klan invited you to a rally in support of you as the presidential candidate, would you go?
I'd reject that. And the Ku Klux Klan, by the way, did invite Ronald Reagan when he ran and gave him a formal endorsement at one time. That does not make Ronald Reagan
that doesn't mean he went to a rally either.
I wouldn't go, and I wouldn't. I would reject that endorsement. You know, I am not a white supremacist. I do not endorse racism. I think there is racism going on today, except now it's being exercised against the white majority in hiring, promotions, scholarships. I even think there's a lot of media attack upon the heritage and values of Middle America. We even have a situation in America right now where Christians are losing the right even to sing Christmas carols in our schools. Our traditions are under attack in this society, and we need to stand up for them.
Scott, it appears as though it's the Democrats' choice as to whether or not David Duke will be on the ballot, because the 5 Republicans have said they will vote against it. Are you going to make a deal with the Democrats as to whether or not they vote yea or nay?
Well, we're certainly not making any deals. Representative Duke has alluded to the smoke-filled room. We're very upfront, we're very outspoken, and we're challenging the Democrats to come out and vote against this. And I'd like to make a clarification. We are indeed not voting to legally eliminate him from the ballot. We are making a choice by this committee saying we will not have a part of putting him on the ballot. He still has the legal right, whether he were to sue the state or to go out and get the 9,000 signatures.
Yeah. Okay.
And that is certainly, he alludes to democracy and referring to the Soviet Union as it's been in the past. That's certainly within his right, and that's the truest form of democracy.
Don't you
What
think
kind of an embarrassment will this be to the Republican Party if the Democrats go ahead and put David Duke on the ballot?
I don't know how much of an embarrassment it is specifically, as much as it's an embarrassment that the two parties collaboratively in the state of Wisconsin cannot recognize the fact that this goes beyond the political implications more directly to a moral decision. And the fact is we have moral problems with the background of David Duke.
Yeah.
How about
Representative
the moral-
Duke, why
how
don't you
about
want to
the
be on the
moral-
ballot?
You keep talking about moral decisions and moral rights. What about the basic right of an American to run for political office and for people to vote for whom they choose? What about that very basic American right, which I believe the Republican Party should stand for?
Well, he raises a good point. Why not let him on the ballot? Let people decide whether
I know
or
why
not.
they don't want me on the ballot, because they're afraid I'm going to get an awful lot of votes and I just might win the primary.
Well, let me
That's
ask
why
you
they're
this,
afraid.
David Duke. Why don't you want to be on the ballot in New Hampshire?
I didn't run in New Hampshire because I didn't have the time to mount the campaign. I just came out of a governor's campaign in Louisiana, and I just didn't have the time to mount that campaign. So I chose to first enter the primaries on Super Tuesday and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little hard to believe that you didn't have the time to go ahead and campaign in New Hampshire.
Well, I really didn't. To
You
mount
had the time to
kind
go
of-
down to Miami.
Well, we did, but again, that gives me 2 months before Super Tuesday to do that. So I did go down. I was invited by the Cuban community, and I just didn't have the time to mount a credible campaign in the state of New Hampshire in the time I was allotted, because it's the first primary and it's 2 months before Super Tuesday, and that's just the logistics of the problem.
Well, we certainly, here again, talking about the time, respectively, Representative Duke, you've basically been running for office since 1988. You've run 5 times. You basically have done a good job at becoming a career professional politician. I don't understand why you can't be running races across the country.
Well, Abraham Lincoln ran 11 times, I think, before he finally won the presidency of the United States, and I would say that he was a pretty prominent Republican. You're going to condemn somebody for running for office? You know, I've certainly come close. I won the vast majority of the Republican votes in every election that I've run in. I am a Republican, a member of the Republican delegation, and I've got a right to run here, to be in the ballot in Wisconsin, and I think the people of the state will recommend that and will also endorse that principle.
And so if they vote on January 28th not to put you on the ballot and you go ahead and sue, how long is that process going to take? Is it going to go beyond the primary so that...
I would think an injunction could be brought down pretty rapidly.
All right, but will you try to go get that 1,000 signatures from each congressional
But
district?
let me ask the Republican president in this case. You know, everybody has told me, Republicans, the biggest fear that Republicans have had is that I'll run third party in November, because if you have a close race between a Democrat and a Republican, they're afraid that I'll draw a lot of votes that George Bush would have received, the same way George Wallace did draw votes in '68. Of course, that was against a very liberal Democratic opponent, George McGovern, with Nixon in the race. You know, I mean, if they deny me the right to run in Wisconsin and the Republican primary as I should be, I would certainly look much harder at entering the Wisconsin general election as an independent, because I want to exercise my rights. Now, I will not run, and I'll make a clear statement to the people of Wisconsin and the Republican Party that if they allow me to participate as I should participate, I will run independent. But I can tell you one thing, if you deny my constitutional rights to run as a Republican, I may run in the general election. If that's what you want, then go ahead and try to suppress my rights here.
Let's go to the phones. People want to get in on this conversation. To Iron Ridge and Jerry, hi.
Yeah, I've been voting a Republican for a number of years, but that Scott definitely makes me ashamed to be a Republican. I think he owes David Duke an apology to bring up that Donroe guy who tried to associate both of them. And
so Jerry, are you proud to be a Republican with David Duke on the ticket?
To run.
Jerry, are you proud to be a Republican with David Duke on the ticket?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and by the way, Pat
Buchanan?
Buchanan too. You know, they got the same bunch of people out there saying he's anti-Semitic. I mean, boy, you can't run in this country. I mean, yeah, let him run. If he gets the votes, if the majority of people in this state wants him in there, then they want him in there.
All right, we'll have to give him a chance. All right. Thanks,
ahead.
Jerry. We appreciate the call. Hughes on the line from Milwaukee High.
Hi. By the way, one of the differences between Scott Walker and David Duke, I now live in Scott Walker's district where he ran for state representative and he lost. David Duke ran for state representative and he won.
Well, but let's make a point here. Scott is not running for office. Okay?
That's right. He's trying to prevent somebody from running from office. He's trying to deny the law, which says that every credible candidate ought to be on the ballot. Okay. Surely David Duke, whether you like his past or not, whether you agree with him or not, is a credible candidate.
Okay.
Just a second. He received 650,000 votes in Louisiana as a Republican. How many votes has Buchanan received? None. Why not kick him off the ballot?
All right. Well, will you vote to put Pat Buchanan on the?
I'm not one of the individuals that votes, but my understanding is that he should be allowed on the ballot. The distinction here again, though, is we're not disallowing him from being on the ballot. He can, if he feels, as the caller just mentioned, that he had a mandate, that he has collected a significant number of Republican votes.
Tell me what's the difference between Pat Buchanan and David Duke?
You are denying me to be on the ballot. Wait, let's make it clear. You're really skirting the issue and you're not being honest here. By not voting to place me on the ballot, to allow me to be in the ballot, though I've requested to be on the ballot through the party and through the Secretary of State, you are, in effect, trying to deny me position on the ballot. Let's be honest about it. Now, we may have results, we may have success in the courts, we may not. But don't tell people you're trying to keep me off you're not trying to keep me off the ballot, because specifically you are.
Linda's on the line from Germantown.
Let's be honest about it here.
Linda's on the line from Germantown. Go ahead.
All I say is go for it, Duke, and stand up what our Constitution says, and I wish you all the luck.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
To Michael from Milwaukee High.
Hello?
Hi, go ahead.
Hi, quick comment to the commentator. I would like to quote what Bill Crosby said, first of all, a couple of weeks ago, in that the media really should stop referring to David Duke as the ex-Nazi or the ex-Klansman, but he is a Republican candidate for president. But then to Mr. Scott, I forgot your last name, sir.
Walker.
You know, Mr. Walker, Mr. Duke is basically saying the kinds of things that the Republicans have been saying since the middle 60s. They started with this argument in the South in the middle 60s and pushed it northward as things happened. Now, he personifies the arguments that you've been using and the governor's been using. So what's the problem? Let him get on the ballot. I don't understand the problem.
Yeah. Well, you raise an interesting point about everybody refers to David Duke's past. And I wonder, David Duke, if it weren't for your past, probably nobody would be paying attention to you.
Well, that may be true, but that's just, my enemies have helped make me. And that's just the reality of life. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to use it to propel and talk about the issues. My past has caused, for the first time in America, a real debate on the affirmative action issue, on forced busing, what it's done to public education, on what's happening in terms of the welfare system, the illegitimacy, the problems that are going on in our society.
And Scott, you would admit that these are issues that Republicans are talking about all the time.
We've certainly mentioned that numerous
Republicans are talking about it more now that I was successful in using them politically. And everybody has got to acknowledge that fact. I was the first one to use it. Patrick Buchanan pointed that out 3 years ago when I first ran.
So you opened the floodgates.
I'm showing the Republican Party the way. If they'll just grasp the ideas and issues I'm talking about, they'll go to victory next November, and they'll go to victory in the future all over the country.
All right, Richard's on the line from Milwaukee. Quickly, please.
Yes, 2 quick points. You know, who is this Scott Walker guy, a mouthpiece for the Republican Party? I've been a Republican for my entire life. He does not represent my view at all. I want David Duke on the ballot. I don't want him determining who's on the ballot for me. Number 2, I think David Duke is right on. And
okay.
I think the only reason that they don't want him to run is because he may damn well win.
All right. Appreciate the call. Thank you. Let's go to Cindy from Milwaukee High. Hi, Cindy. Go ahead, quickly.
Hi. I'm just called to say I'm for David Duke all the way. It's about time we have someone who's concerned about the people and to do something about it.
Okay. Well, you know, you hear all of these pro comments for David Duke. Are you surprised by this, Scott, or not?
Well, there's certainly factions within every community. And here again, what we're saying is, as a party, as a state of Wisconsin Republican Party, is that we feel we have the right, based upon our looking at his very recent, I go back to 1989, some of the other things which we may disagree with.
But he says he didn't.
Well, he certainly disagrees with, but we feel that those issues have been brought up and legitimized in that, and we may differ. But we feel that we certainly have the right to be opposed based upon his background.
Is the Republican Party
Scott,
getting their message from Washington and they're saying, look, Republican parties of states, keep this man off the ballot? Is that what's happening?
Well, here again,
taking direct orders from Washington?
Well, Washington has been George Bush, the president. Republicans across the country, whether it be grassroots organizations on the west side, the east side, north side of Milwaukee, or whether it be right out of Washington, D.C., have spoken out in opposition.
Listen, let me tell you, let me say something to you, Scott. If you're going to make an ideological or some sort of purity of philosophy test for every candidate, where is that going to end?
Now,
how are we going to decide who gets in the ballot or who doesn't?
Now,
Don't the people have the right to vote for who they want to within the Republican Party? Should a handful of people like you say to people, they don't have the right to vote for someone as a Republican or as a Democrat or anything else? I don't think so. I think there should be objective criteria. If you want to make objective criteria, make everybody have a certain number of signatures or everybody have a certain position in the polls or a certain percentage in the polls to get in the ballot, fine. But you don't single out people because of what they believe or what they say or what you think that they say.
Let's go back to the phones.
That's what America's all about. They have a right, people have a right to hear for themselves and vote for themselves, whether they like someone or whether they don't.
Dan's on the line from Racine. Hi.
Hi. I'd like to make it real short.
Okay.
That I am totally opposed to what David Duke stands for, totally. But I believe he's got a right to be on the ballot. Back in 1980, when John D. Anderson ran for president as an independent, he had the same problem getting on state ballots.
Yeah. Are you going to have the ACLU on your back, Scott, maybe fighting David Duke's battle?
Well, here again, there is a legal out. There are a number of options. The fact of the matter is that we, as a political entity, have a right to make a statement on a political issue.
Is the Republican Party that worried, though, to have David Duke?
Obviously.
Well, I think
I mean, it appears as though they may be.
Well, it's not so much a matter of being worried as much as we're making a statement. Just as in, and here's a good analogy. Just as in 1988, the Republicans criticized then Governor Michael Dukakis for the fact that he vetoed legislation requiring students to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. In a sense, the reason we criticized him was because even though he felt that the state Supreme Court in the state of Massachusetts was going to veto or overrule it because of constitutionality questions, we felt he should have still signed it and then forced the courts to do the same because we felt he should have made a political statement, even though it may not have held up legally. The same is true here. We wish to make a political statement. He may legally have every option to get on via the courts or via the nominations.
If you say I'm so unpopular among Republicans and so I shouldn't deserve a place in the ballot because I don't have any popularity in the Republican Party, why don't you let me on the ballot and then you will see how many people vote for me. If you think I'm going to be put down because few people will vote for me, if you really believe that, then put me on the ballot. Wouldn't that be a good statement for the Republican Party from your point of view?
It's not a matter of popularity because we're not running a popularity contest.
Well, but wait a minute. It seems as though it is because if you look at the statute, it says recognition by the news media, and so isn't that popularity?
Well, in a certain sense, it's very vague. And one of the legitimate points that Representative Duke has brought up is that maybe it will force the state to recognize the fact that they need to go to having all candidates collecting 1,000 signatures because it will provide a true mandate, not just the vote totals in the state of Louisiana, but a mandate of the citizens of the state of Wisconsin.
Or maybe make the statute not so vague. Let's go to Fox Point and Bob. Hi, Bob.
Hi. I'd like to ask Mr. Walker a question, and that is I'd like to know what kind of a statement he's making when he says he's for Pat Buchanan being on the ballot, who has been reported by many people as a known anti-Semite, but he doesn't want David Duke on the ballot. What's the difference?
Okay.
Well, there's a clear distinction in the sense that there have been a few on the side, but we haven't seen overwhelming support across the media and across the country of people reporting those types of issues.
But how many people does it take to report it before everybody believes it?
It goes back to the vagueness. At this point, we're making a judgment.
But Scott, if you look at this statute, this is pretty vague, isn't it?
It's pretty straightforward. It says media recognition. Certainly, the media recognizes me as a candidate for president. I've been mentioned in every major magazine, every major national newscast. I'm certainly more well-known running for president than any of the Democratic hopefuls right now. So I qualify by any standard.
Russ is on the line from Milwaukee High. Quickly.
Hello.
Yeah.
I guess I have a comment and a question for Mr. Walker. And it just seems today it's easier to get on the ballot in the former republics of the Soviet Union than it is to get on the ballot in the United States, and that seems rather odd to me at best.
Amen.
And the question is, and I'm not a supporter of Mr. Dukes at all, but the question to Mr. Walker is, it seems the fair way to place individuals' names on the ballot is for all to collect the same number of minimum number of signatures.
Sure.
And that should be the way it's done. And I don't understand the present situation
Sure.
that we have, in especially Wisconsin,
Sure. With all
ballot
due
status laws. So would you just answer that question,
Yeah,
yes or no?
certainly, sir. You may have just missed my comment, and that was I was agreeing with Representative Duke in the sense that he did bring up a legitimate point that this may call upon the state legislature to enact a more clear definition, in particular going to the 1,000 signatures.
But if this system is not fair, if I should be given the same standard as Bush or Buchanan or any other candidate, and that's recognition by national media, and that's supposed to be your decision or how you make your decision, certainly I qualify. Now, either you're going to have the guts to follow what's right and honest, or you're going to continue to sound like these bosses of the Communist Party and the Soviet Union over the last 50 years, all this him-hawing around. The people of Wisconsin have a right to vote for me if they like. I've got a right to be in the ballot. If you don't believe in that
Representative
principle,
Duke,
you don't believe in America.
Part of the problem here may be that people maybe don't know what you stand for.
Well, I think that's the whole process of elections, that people have a chance to hear what people stand for. We have debates, we have forums, we have advertising, we have campaigning.
Yeah, when are you going to be in, when are you going to be in Wisconsin?
Be
when are you going to be in Wisconsin?
I hope to be there within the next 4 weeks.
Okay, and you are setting up
for
your
our first campaign stop.
All right, you're setting up your campaign headquarters where?
We don't know yet. That's still under consideration.
All right. How much support do you think you have in Wisconsin?
I think right now we have about 30 to 35% of the vote right now before even stepping foot in the state to campaign. We got 56% of the Republican vote in Louisiana. We've gotten tremendous vote. Every poll around the country that we've seen, call-in polls, show us very, very strong. And I think we have a good chance of getting close to a majority of the vote in Wisconsin. Now, time will tell. I don't know if we can do that or not. It's an uphill fight against an incumbent president. But certainly I have the right to run, and I think that the people of Wisconsin will
How much of a war chest do you have?
Right now we have about $200,000. We have mailings out right now. We expect to raise about $3 to $5 million and have most of that matched by federal matching funds. We raised $2.5 million in the U.S. Senate race and about $2.25 million in the governor's race. And now we're getting more contributions from all over the country, so we expect to have a goodly amount of money to run this race.
Yeah, and do you realize, though, that it is tough for people to put your past aside and look at you now and with that new face and this new outlook that you have?
I understand, sir. I know it's tough for some people, but I'm a Christian, and I believe that people have a chance to change in their lives. And I'm talking about things nobody else really is talking about. Still am.
And Scott
President
Walker?
Bush should not have open borders with Mexico. It's going to hurt American industry and American business. You know, if down in Mexico they don't worry about pollution. They don't have to worry about decent wages. They don't have to worry about high taxes. And if
I hope you're not advocating that that's what we should be going after. Scott Walker.
No, I think we should go on free trade.
All right, we need to leave it there, Representative
Free
Duke.
trade's not what we need.
Scott Walker, your prediction, I guess, if you will, for January 28th of what the committee will vote?
Well, we're certainly hoping it's going to be a majority opposed putting him on the ballot.
All right, we will find out. Scott Walker, thanks very much. And Representative
Shame on you, Scott Walker. Shame
Dave
on
Duke,
you.
thank you. Appreciate the time. Thank you for joining us as well. We thank you for your calls. Tomorrow night, a preview of Bill Moyer's look at Milwaukee's new economy. Have a good evening. We'll see you back then.
To Wright Smith & Company, send letters to WMVS-TV, 1036 North 8th Street, Milwaukee, 53233, or call us on our opinion line at 278-1557. Call between 7:30 and 9 at night.